Okay, so this is a group coaching session, and the intention of this group coaching session is to give you some strategies and some tips and some techniques for managing stress and anxiety over the coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus, which is all over the world at the moment. And basically, we're all in the same boat. If you are a human being and you have a nervous system, then you are going to be feeling stress and anxiety over this. And I don't care how long you've been tapping. If you know tapping, then like me, you're going to be experiencing anxiety that comes up and stress from seeing other people in distress, from seeing distressful news, and all kinds of things that are happening in different parts of the world. And so this new tool of intention tapping that I have created and that I discovered a few years back is fantastic for helping you to manage that stress and anxiety. So I wanted to give you some of that stuff today. So it's just some things that we need to go through here in order to be able to go forward. One is that by participating or watching this, you must agree with the disclaimer that you acknowledge this is just for information and education. It's not medical advice. That many of the techniques that I'm going to be using are still considered experimental with no guaranteed outcomes for any particular person. And just because other people have had positive results doesn't that mean that those results will be exactly the same for you. You have to agree to take full responsibility for your own physical and mental health and consult your physician and or therapist regarding the use of any of the techniques that I use or teach in this program. Okay, some housekeeping and group guidelines. The call is being recorded. By participating, you give permission to being recorded, being warned of this up front. If that isn't the case, then you need to leave now. If you're staying on the line, because we're doing Zoom coaching and you'll be seeing other people and they'll be seeing you, please listen actively to other people. Keep the call private. This is for adults only. Please do not allow people to enter the room behind you or have background distractions. If you start picking your nose, someone will see it. If you start scratching your back, someone will see it. Fair enough to scratch yourself and so on, but if you can keep the distractions down, that would be really appreciated. And if you do need to leave the room or get up to go somewhere, please just switch your video off so that it goes black, and then people won't see you wandering around and it won't be so distracting. If you already know tapping, you can start tapping now. And once you know tapping, you can tap along and you're going to borrow benefits from the people that I work with today, because I am going to be doing some live coaching. Okay, the aim of this session is to give you some techniques, some strategies, some tips to release anxiety and stress over the coronavirus. Number one, so you can feel better. Number two, so you can think more clearly. And when you're feeling better and you're thinking more clearly, then you can make a plan and follow a plan that works for you to give you the best chance of coming through this in the best possible way. Just wanted to ask a quick question, how the coronavirus has been affecting you. If you can just put this in the chat, you'll see that there's a chat button down the bottom of the screen. You should be able to just start typing stuff in the chat there. And if I can actually get that to come up on my screen, then I can see what people are putting in there. So Rachel says, masses of work cancellations, just lost a heap of money. Every one of us who is in business, apart from maybe some supermarkets at the moment and some people who are in very fortunate industries, are dealing with that kind of issue. Wow, lots of answers here. Thank you so much for everyone for putting this in. I can't keep up with them all, but I'm trying to. I'm angry, work is closed, anxiety provoking, there's sadness. I'm just reading from the responses you're putting here. Being at home all the time, yeah, that can be really stressful, especially, well, you know, it might be stressful for you for your own reasons, but it's also very stressful for some people to have their kids at home, etc. Farrell says, I have autoimmune issues, so very freaked out and also losing clients. School closed, insomnia, worry about global economics, lost job, financial reasons. Yeah, these are major issues. Katasia, Catania, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong. You're saying you're here in Warsaw, Poland. Yes, money and fear. Colette, slowing down a real and wonderful well-being as a result. Okay, wonderful well-being as a result. So there's a positive. Not everything that's happening is negative for everybody. There are some positive things that are happening. Now, I just noticed there's some people coming in, but I don't know how to let them in without stopping the share. So I apologize. I just had to come back to you here so I can actually find these people who are in the waiting room and let them in, because we're up now above 80 people in the group, and we're heading towards our maximum of 100. Alrighty, so let me just go back to sharing the screen where I was there. Okay, so all those things are things that you can apply tapping to help you. Yes, the outside situation may still be a challenge, but when you feel better and when you can think more clearly, then you can make a better plan for how to adapt and how to deal with what's happening, whatever it is. Okay, so we're going to be using tapping, and tapping generally involves tapping on the face. And if you're going to do that tapping on the face, then you need to wash your hands thoroughly. In fact, if you haven't washed your hands now, take 20 seconds, go and wash your hands, come back. I'm just going to be going through this stuff about, tapping not being a replacement for proper medical care. If you are feeling sick, you need to follow your local guidelines about how and when to contact medical professionals. I'm not one of those people who believes that you can just tap and you don't have to get involved in the medical system. I'm actually up for not either or, but yes and. How can we use the best that's available from the alternative world together with the best that's available from the conventional world so that we can get the best outcomes? Now, for some reason, somebody must be unmuting himself. So if you could just stay muted the whole time, that would be good. I have given you the capacity to unmute yourself in this group, but I'm asking you to stay muted until it's time for questions and answers and stuff like that, or for volunteering. Okay, so if you know tapping, then you can start tapping now. And here are my beautiful participants in my last Strasbourg workshop. Tapping away. For those of you who are brand new to tapping, I'm not going to go through a lot of detail. It's just going to be basically, let's get started. These are some of the main points that we use in simple energy techniques. Now, if you're familiar with EFT, the most commonly known tapping approach in the world, emotional freedom techniques, which was created by Gary Craig, myself and my colleague, Dr. David Lake, we studied with Gary Craig, and we developed a simpler way of tapping we call simple energy techniques. Now, it might not look simple at the start, because for those of you who are using tapping with EFT these days, you're mostly using the upper body points, which are on the left-hand of that picture. And, because most people are using really the shortcut version of EFT and tapping on those, the points on the top of the head, the eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, on the chin, under the collarbone and under the arm, and also on the side of the hand on what was originally called the karate chop spot. People are now just calling the side of hand point. It's an old diagram, I apologize here. But we also use points on the side of the thumb, on the side of the index finger, on the side of the middle finger. We also use, in fact, this is a way old diagram. I don't know how this got in here. We also tap on the side of the ring finger, and we tap on the side of the little finger. And so this is some important differences with SET and EFT tapping, is that you can tap on all of these points using SET. What makes it simpler is that you don't have to come up with words for your tapping. You simply tap on these points in any order on either side of the body. You don't have to be clever. You can just focus on whatever you're aware of, whether you have thoughts, whether you have feelings, whether you have body sensations. You can tap directly where you focus in on your problems or issues or your anxiety or your stresses or your stressful thoughts, or indirectly where you just tap. And this is one of the great things about the simple tapping of SET, which is that just tapping can have a benefit of its own. And this has kind of been lost in a lot of the tapping world. Now, we use this simple tapping of SET combined with the intention process that I'm going to be explaining shortly. And we tend to use a process of mindfully noticing what's happening, accepting what's there, not trying to force it to go away, allowing it to be there, and just adding tapping to its presence, and then following and allowing it to do whatever it does and move however it moves. We find the more tapping you do, the better your results are likely to be. And we also have discovered a process whereby if you tap it every day, and this is something I'm going to really encourage you to do while we're going through this coronavirus, if you tap every day and you do enough of it, then you're going to be rising your good life energy, and you're going to be decreasing your stress energy. The research shows that tapping reduces cortisol, which is the stress chemical that flows through your system, and it also increases positive chemicals in your system. So just the process of tapping and then getting enough of it happening is going to bring down that general anxiety, because most people are suffering at a certain level of anxiety every single day now because of the amount of stress that's going around the world and the whole world system. So just in regard to the fingertip tapping, here's some diagrams just showing you the basics of using that. You're just letting the thumb tap down on the side of the index finger, and then on the side of the middle finger, and then the side of the ring finger, and then the side of the little finger. And you can also let the index finger or the middle finger wrap around and tap on the side of the thumb point. So this way you're getting tapping done on the finger points using the thumb of the same hand. And this is something you can do out in public. Now, all right, maybe we're not going out in public as much. Well, there's a good thing. That means we have potential to do a lot of tapping on the stuff that we are being fed from wherever we are. Now, in different places, people are still going out to work. They still are going out in public. The fingertip tapping using the thumb of the same hand is discreet. You can take it with you everywhere you go. It's also tapping without touching your face. So if you're worried that your hands may be infecting your face or whatever, you can do tapping on the fingertip points. And you can also do tapping, by the way, you can tap on the points under the collarbone and under the arm without having any worry about infecting yourself. I'm going to combine the simple energy techniques, the simple tapping, with what we're now calling intention tapping. And this is a process I discovered. I originally was calling it intention-based energy process, and that's still the broad name for the technique. And this is a process of using definite intentions, which act as commands to your unconscious mind to release your emotional attachments that are upsetting you. It's our emotional attachments to what's happening that are causing our suffering, not just what's happening. If that weren't the case, then everybody would be suffering equally, and they're not. So those who are able to deal with what's happening are either releasing their emotional attachments, or they're not getting triggered in the same way that other people are, because they don't have those things that are attached to those situations and beliefs and thoughts and images and so on. So it releases your emotional attachments using intention. The intention can be used with or without tapping. It helps to restore your energy back to flow, to get you back to balance and clarity, and it allows you to reconnect with your inner resources. A big part of the discovery came from this statement from Byron Katie's book. Byron Katie has a wonderful process she calls the work, and her book, Loving What Is a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. If you're going to be at home, physically distancing yourself from other people, and you're going to have a bit of time, why don't you get hold of her book and read it? It's fantastic. And she says a thought is harmless unless we believe it. It's not our thoughts, but the attachment to our thoughts that causes suffering. I would say the same thing about what's happening. It's not what's happening, it's our attachments, our emotional attachments to that that's causing us to suffer emotionally. All right, so the last things that you need to know in terms of content, and you might want to write this down if you're brand new to this process. We're going to be combining tapping on these acupressure points, which in itself is a beautiful process for releasing emotional attachments and restoring energy flow and balance, with specific intention statements. And they are simply this: Number one, I release all my emotional attachments to this problem, this event, this image, this belief, this thought, this coronavirus, this world situation, this financial situation, whatever it is that's upset you. You start with, I release all my emotional attachments to that. And then the process, which I hope to demonstrate here and use in coaching, because this is mainly going to be a coaching once we get through this part, to show you how this can work, to apply it to those issues, and how when you release those emotional attachments, you're going to end up feeling a lot differently. And then there are a couple of other statements about restoring energy flow and restoring energy balance. So you notice wherever the problem is upsetting in your body, and you say, I restore the right energy flow to this body area, or you say, I restore the right energy balance to this area in my body, or you can say, I restore the right energy flow and balance. So if you have a feeling in your stomach, like in the diagram here, you can say, I restore the right energy flow and balance to my stomach. And then you just keep tapping and notice what comes next and follow what comes next. All right, so what I'm going to do now is come back to the group, stop sharing, and start some coaching. Now, I did ask for volunteers for coaching, and as far as I know, everybody who volunteered already has worked with me. And what I really want to do is to start with someone who hasn't worked with me. Now, Christine, I know two Christines with the same name in this group, and one I don't think knows this tapping as well as the other. So if you're the one who knows me and knows the tapping, can you let me know? If you're not, then you can be my first volunteer because you're on my list. The other people on the list, I'll try and come to you and we'll do some coaching work together. But otherwise, I'm going to ask some people who are brand new to this, who, if you just type in the chat and you want to volunteer and do some coaching with me, and essentially we're going to be tapping on these acupressure points, and we're going to be using the intention tapping process to help you with whatever is stressing you or making you anxious about the coronavirus. Now I see, Sue, I see you've got your hand up. So does that mean that you want to volunteer? Just nod your head if that's a yes. Okay. All right.
Steve, I'm the Christine that hasn't worked with you, I think.
Aha. All right. So that's good. So I've just picked on Sue, and I'm going to come to you next, Christine. Thank you very much. Okay. You are. Yes. I see you now. All right, Sue. So I'm going to need you to unmute yourself because the system won't let me unmute you. And you can do that by hovering over your image, and you'll see that there's a mute or unmute button.
Done it.
All right, done it. Okay, where are you from, Sue?
I'm in UK.
Okay, and you haven't done intention tapping before?
I've done it from reading the things you've sent out and stuff. I've never worked with you.
Okay, there's a bit of a distortion in your audio. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just I'm not sure if there's something you can do to modify that. If you go to that video icon, or maybe you can change the volume of your audio or something. You can select a different microphone if you have that on your computer. Just see if you can do something for us just to make it a little less.
Don't know what I can do.
Okay. All right, well, we'll just tap and we'll deal with it. Okay. So first of all, you know tapping?
Yes.
Okay, so that means you can start tapping. Now, if you haven't washed your hands, then,
I have.
All right, you have, then you can tap on the on the face points, okay? Otherwise, get yourself some hand sanitizer, put it on your hands and do that. I've washed my hands 1,000,000 times today and I haven't touched anything since this session, before this session started. So the points for everyone who's brand new, these are the acupressure points. So if we can just go through those, Sue, just for the brand new people. Start of the eyebrow, side of the eye, edge of the temple, under the eye, under the nose, under the lip, under the collarbone, close into the center, under the arm, about level with the middle of the bra band for ladies, or gents, level with the nipple on the side of the body. And of course, on the side of the thumb, level with the base of the thumbnail, side of the index finger level with the nail, side of the middle finger, side of the ring finger, side of the little finger, and on the side of the hand. And there's also some points on the wrist. You can just tap those with the flat of your hand, and of course on the top of the head. So those are the basic points. Now, anyone who needs to review this, you can go back and look at the diagram. You can look on our website. Now we're just going to keep tapping continually. We use continual tapping rather than the tapping in rounds like they use in EFT. We found that the more tapping you do, the better. Keep tapping, everything keeps processing. And so if you keep tapping it, everyone who's watching now just keeps tapping on any of those points. You can follow along, or you can just tap on any points that you remember. And you can also tap using the thumb of the same hand to tap on the side of each of the fingers on that hand, just like I'm doing here right now. Okay. And of course, like this. Okay. So I'm going to assume that we're all tapping along, which means if we've got, you know, around an hour left, then we're going to get an hour of tapping in, regardless of what happens. All right. So now, Sue, what is the problem that this coronavirus thing is causing for you? What's stressing you? What's causing you anxiety?
I'm worried about the financial side of what's going on worldwide.
Yep. Okay. And right now, as you tell me that, what do you notice?
It's making me more breathless.
Yes. Okay. So I want you to say this: I restore the right energy flow to my breath.
I restore the right energy flow to my breath.
And then don't try and make anything happen. Just keep tapping and just notice what happens with that. And this is the key here, is tapping, keeping on tapping, and then just letting it do whatever it does, and then just notice what it does. And then just, once you notice, let me know.
I'm not very good at noticing.
I know, but anybody who was watching you would have noticed that you just let a bit of a breath through just there. Okay. And this is what happens sometimes with tapping. It's so beautiful that you just feel like you felt that way the whole time, even though you just shifted, you know. So that's very common. But let's go back to the issue that you brought up, because that's what's triggering you, right? That's what's that's got strong emotion attached to it. And if we can release that emotion and let that flow, then you won't be feeling the same way when you think about that. So just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments
To the world financial situation.
To the world financial situation.
And then just keep tapping, and then just let it do whatever it does, and just notice what comes next. Could be a thought, could be a feeling, could be a sensation, could be an image, could be anything.
Yeah, something shifted. My shoulders went down a bit.
Yeah, okay. So this is what happens with the intention tapping. It usually happens quite quickly, you know, within a few seconds, that you then shift through that aspect of the problem to the next part of the problem. So what are you noticing now? Or if you think about the world financial situation, what thought comes up, or what feeling comes up, or whatever?
It just feels so scary. It's the fear.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown, I guess.
Yeah, okay. So just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To the unknown.
To the unknown.
As strange as it seems, that's usually what people are not scared about. What they really are scared about is that their mind is projecting something. So it's not unknown at all. It's saying, no, it's not unknown, it's going to happen. This is going to happen, and it's going to be terrible. So
yeah, fear of not having enough.
There it is. Okay, so that's usually what's happening, is when we're getting anxious, our mind is creating projections of situations that might happen, and then then we're suffering them as if as if they're happening to us now. Okay, so now that you've noticed that, you just keep on tapping and just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To the fantasy.
To the fantasy.
That I won't have enough.
That I won't have enough.
I'm deliberately calling it a fantasy. It's a projection that your mind is making that, you know, maybe you're eating gruel, or maybe you're out on the street, or maybe you're suffering in some way, or whatever it is. And just notice what happens with that.
Something shifted almost immediately.
Uh-huh.
But a little bit.
A little bit, of course. And this is what happens, is that a problem can have many parts. So anyone who's familiar with EFT, you know there's lots of different aspects to problems. What the intention tapping allows you to do is to shift through aspects like that, like that. You still have to deal with aspects, but you can move to whatever comes next. And what we learn to do in this process is we learn to trust the unconscious. Oh, excuse me, some people just are not muted. So I'll just try and mute everyone again. And if you could please stay muted until it's time for group discussion, that would be great. All right, so now I need you to unmute you. Oh, you are unmuted, right. So what's the next thing you notice, Sue?
It does feel a lot lighter.
Uh-huh, okay. And what's the problem now?
Maybe it's gone for now.
How do you know?
Because I'm not feeling that anymore.
Okay, well, let's never trust that, right?
No.
No. We don't just go, oh, I feel good, I'm fixed. We go, because otherwise you think you're fine and then something can easily trigger you still. So let's see if there's something that can trigger you. What would trigger you?
Worrying about my children.
Okay.
And their financial situations.
Now that you've brought that up, notice what's happening in your body.
There's a shrinkage somewhere inside.
Exactly. This is what happens, is that when we have things like this, it causes us to close. There's a constriction in the breath. There's almost always some kind of constriction in the breath when we have a problem like this. Okay. So something that you're imagining about what might happen with your kids, or something that did happen to them that's kind of intruding, is causing that feeling to be there. So let's just start with what you said. Just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To what might happen with my children.
To what might happen with my children.
And then just notice what happens. Let it do what it does. Looks like...
Yeah, there was a release there.
Yeah. See how quick it is to actually let go when you just use the process. The problem usually, and this is worldwide, is that even though people have tapping and they know these processes, they're not using them. And I've been the same. You can just get locked on to watching the slow motion train wreck occurring in front of you on the media or on what you're following or whatever online, and or what people are telling you about, and just getting upset, and compounding the upset rather than releasing it. Okay, so what are you noticing?
It's still there in my throat,
Okay.
as well as sort of hereish.
Okay,
Thymus.
so say I restore the right energy flow and balance to my throat.
I restore the right energy flow and balance to my throat.
A little bit of breath went through then, but not a big
Yeah.
bit. And what's happened with that feeling?
It's still there.
Yes. And how is it compared to a moment ago? Is it the same? Is it different? What's actually...
It's pretty much the same.
Okay.
Although something happened, but it's kind of come back.
Sure. And the reason why is that these disturbances in energy flow, if they're still there, it's because we still have other attachments. there's other aspects that are still triggering us. And so the releasing attachments is the big thing, okay? So in fact, how about this? Sometimes we can be emotionally attached to the feeling, and that just makes us feel worse about having the feeling.
Yes.
Fear of feeling fear. You know, it really is true that, you know, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. I would say we have nothing to fear but anxiety itself, because
Yes.
real fear is when you have a real threat that you can do something about, you know.
I suffer from anxiety anyway.
Yeah, sure. So if you've got general anxiety, then your anxiety is going to keep coming up to the level that it is until you bring that level down. So I recommend for you daily tapping, lots of it, just for energy toning to bring down your general anxiety level. And
I do that.
every day you're aware of, every time you're aware of something that's triggering you, just use the releasing statement. I release all my emotional attachments to this. And just say I release all my emotional attachments to anxiety.
I release all my emotional attachments to anxiety.
And then just let it do what it does and just notice.
It's dropped a bit.
Yeah. Another little breath snuck through. You keep breathing, you might live.
Maybe that's what's worrying me.
Quite possible. What, that you might live?
Yes.
Why would you be worried about that?
Because to me, death is fine. It's suffering I'm not mad about.
Ah, so this is what most people are worried about. You know, it's actually suffering. And this is the thing that most people end up suffering 1,000 times before their death, you know? And so just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments
To my suffering fantasies.
to my suffering fantasies.
Okay, so that brought something to the party, right? Did you start to notice some of your projections or whatever? Or what did
Yeah. It's just noticing that something's happening rather than knowing what it is.
Of course. And in this process, you just notice what happens, and then you just keep tapping until something comes next. And it might be a thought, it might be a feeling, it might be a body sensation, whatever it is, just notice it and let it come. And then just tell me when you notice.
Feels like it's coming up again.
Yeah, okay, good. So if it's moving, this is good.
Yes.
Movement is good. Your feelings want to move you and move through you. And information wants to move through you, and thoughts want to move through you. It's when we resist them or we get stuck. Like we have a thought and we go, oh no, that's a terrible thought. I shouldn't have that thought. And then we stop it from being able to pass through, because your mind is just going to think freely whether you like it or not. And it will do all kinds of things. And the problem in a way is believing your thoughts, you know, and attaching to them.
Yes.
So just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments
To this feeling.
to this feeling.
As strange as it is, if you weren't so worried about feelings moving through your body, you could let them move through a lot more.
Yes.
Of course, the fear is if we let them flow, then we'll be overwhelmed by them, or they'll take us over, or stuff like that, you know?
Yes. Worrying about overwhelm.
Yeah. Okay, so just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments
To overwhelm.
to overwhelm.
And
Yes, that was it.
just finished saying I don't have energy to continuously tap. So in that case, first of all, you can just touch or hold the points rather than tapping, and you don't have to tap on those points. You can just gently touch and breathe into the points. The other thing is you can just use the intention statements without having to tap, and it works very well. So what's happening now?
It's feeling better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, So what we're doing here is we're just continuing to go through aspects, and until there's not so many ways or either there's not, those ways don't trigger you anymore, or they don't trigger you as much. And then we keep working on bringing that down and releasing whatever attachments we still have. Yeah.
It's like it's moved to my ears as well.
Your ears. Okay. Well, a lot of people would say, maybe there's something you don't want to hear. Well, I don't know.
I'm sure.
I don't know. So I restore the right energy flow to my ears.
I restore the right energy flow to my ears.
And my throat.
And my throat.
And my
Oh, yes. Yes.
And my chest.
And my chest.
And my heart.
And my heart. Oh, yes.
So the more we go with this, and for anyone who's totally new, when you do tapping, when you start to have the yawns, see, we started out initially with just some little breaths coming through, the breathing starting to open up. When you start yawning and sighing, and some people start shaking and moving, and some people start burping, and all kinds of releases happen with this stuff, then you're on track.
Yes. With me, it's yawning, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very, very much.
No worries. All right. So we're just going to pause here, and then we'll get some more volunteers in. So thank you very much, Sue. And
thank you very much.
If you can just unmute yourself for us, Sue, that'd be great. And then we'll head back to our group. So again, for everyone who's here, and for those of you who've just joined us, there's people still joining us. People coming online, people dropping offline. We've got about mid-80s of people at the moment, so we're still okay. If you're tapping on the points now and you tap along, you're going to keep benefiting. And if you can still see Sue, as she keeps tapping, she's still yawning. So now that yawning process has started, you keep on tapping, you keep the releasing and restoring happening through that process. So it works really, really well. And yeah, people saying thank you to Sue. It's very good to watch, but it's also very good to tap along, because when you tap along when someone else is working, you borrow benefits for your own issues. All right, so let's come to Christine. Christine, you're my other volunteer who actually wrote to me in time. I wasn't sure because there's another Christine with your name exactly that I know very well. And I thought she's pretty au fait with the tapping. So you've been following along though for a little while now, because I've seen you send emails and stuff. What's the issue for you?
I'm just really intrigued at how much of what Sue was saying was bringing up stuff for me that I didn't even know was a problem. So thank you, Sue. My big fantasy that I've just realized is the word, because you used it, is all about what's going to happen to everyone else.
Yes.
I'm a big helper. I like to go out and help people. Yes. And I'm not allowed to do that now. This would be
true for a lot of people here. If you're that kind of person, then you are triggered by people's suffering and pain. And of course, if you now start imagining lots of suffering and pain, then you can really overwhelm yourself with bad feelings, right?
Yep.
Yeah. The good news about that suffering and pain is that you only have to deal with it when it happens, when it actually happens. And you only have to deal with what happens when it happens. Of course, because we see people suffering in other parts of the world, and it's in, it's in widescreen digital right in front of us with surround sound, our mirror neurons can be going as if it's happening to us and as if it's happening right now in front of us. And so our heart goes out to people, and of course that's natural. But when you're overwhelmed by it, it means that you have attached to it, okay? And that's the challenge. Otherwise it flows through you, and your emotions flow through you, and you can have that, that love flow through you, and the compassion flow through you, and even the sadness flow through you in that moment, but it doesn't stay stuck, okay? So the challenge is to allow those emotions to flow through you, and not to let them have to get stuck. And of course, you're attaching to something, that's why you're stuck. Okay, so yeah, it's projections of stuff, right?
Yep.
And you're already becoming aware of them.
Yeah.
So what is it right now?
I'm very aware of being alone, living alone, being isolated, not being able to touch other people.
Okay.
And that really came up when I drove past a funeral. I'm going to cry. I've cried about it every week, every day.
Right now?
I'm tapping on my finger points.
Okay, good.
And yeah, I drove past a funeral on Saturday, and I just thought, how many of my family are not going to make it?
Yes.
That's part of it.
Yes.
And
well, actually, you don't think that, because I mean, you might ask that question, and then guess what? Your mind will answer it. It'll go, oh, this one will die, that one will die, that one's gone, they're going to die, it's going to be horrific, this is how it's going to be, they're going to suffer in this way, as if you are God and you know exactly what's going to happen in the world, right?
yeah, and I've been telling myself that that's, we don't know. And I have a medical background, so I understand the transmission of virus.
So you're using cognitive approach, right?
Absolutely.
The problem is that cognitive approach appeals really well to the part of you that knows that. It might help a little bit with some of that anxiety, but there's a lot of strong feelings here that have been, okay? And the first one you said was, I'm alone. So let's start with that. Just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I'm going to cry. I release all my emotional attachments.
To I'm all alone.
To I'm all alone.
Yep, that's what happens with this approach. You instantly get the breath coming through, and then you move to the next part of that. So now either you'll start becoming in contact with how you're alone, or what that means about being alone, or another problem.
My next thought is I release all attachment to dying alone.
Okay, so that's your projection. Yes. Yeah, you're going to die alone in your house or unit or whatever it is, and they're going to find your decaying body, coronavirus body. Sorry, everyone, I use a provocative approach. It's deliberately exaggerating the negative, right? But that's what the mind does.
Yeah.
Okay. So of course it makes it really awful, and it uses some of the best techniques that the top movies use to make it compelling, right? As if it's real. So I don't know how, if you were alone, you would catch it. It probably would have to come in through the,
I've been going out.
Oh, okay, of course. Okay. So just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To the dying alone fantasy.
To the dying alone fantasy. I'm actually not worried about dying alone from the coronavirus. I have a heart condition.
Ah, okay. So you could just, drop at any moment.
Well, not really, but yes. I have a defibrillator implanted, so I get zapped, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, and do you have plans associated with that? Like, people...
If I'm not on Facebook in 6 hours, my daughter contacts me.
Yeah. All right.
Like, she knows when to check.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that's what you have. So just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To the, what is it? Is it a heart?
Cardiomyopathy would be the...
Yeah, but when you project, what's going to happen?
It's just dying. It's dying and not being able to get help.
Okay. Yeah, and it's not dead. It's dying.
No. Yeah, it's the suffering. It's what Sue said. I'm not afraid of dying. If I just die and die, that's fine. It's the suffering.
Well, I always say dying is, we're all going to die, but it's going to be the last thing I do.
Yeah, I agree.
I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
Now, you can use the word projection, because it is a mind projection.
Yep.
Or, and by the way, the mind does this for lots of good reasons. It does it to say, okay, here's something that might happen. How would you deal with that? And if you could look at it from outside without having to go into it, without having to attach to it, without having to feel the feelings as if it's really happening, then you could look at it from outside and say, yeah, that could happen. What's the best way to plan, or how would I deal with that? Do you know what I mean? That's actually what your mind wants to do. They say it's evolutionarily helped us to survive, to have such a negatively focused mind. But the problem is not that the mind creates those projections, it's that we so easily go into them as if they're really happening now.
Yeah.
And then we get scared by our thoughts, as if our thoughts are real.
Yeah.
Just say, try that. Just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments
To my BS.
to my BS.
That these thoughts are really happening.
That these thoughts are really happening.
And you've probably swallowed it's BS, is belief systems, right? Okay. So you probably swallowed, because you're in this field, the BS that if you think it, you cause it, right?
I haven't really.
Okay, well, let's just see anyway. Just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments
To the BS.
to the BS.
That if I think it, I'll cause it.
That if I think it, I'll cause it.
And if I think it, it'll happen.
And if I think it will happen.
And then just tap.
I am doing my fingers.
Yeah.
Feels like everything's just caught in my chest.
Okay, beautiful. So when you do some releasing work, then you're going to start to get in touch with the body a lot more. And then you can use the restoring statements. So just say, I restore the right energy flow to my chest.
I restore the right energy flow to my chest.
And just keep tapping and notice what it does. Yep, beautiful.
I sometimes think my jaw's going to break when I do this technique.
Well, it's good. So you're releasing. I see Sue's yawning along with you now. So she's continuing to get the benefits by tapping along with you. And, you know, if we look through the group, we're seeing other people that are yawning at the same time. So it's good to see. Yeah. Okay. So what's next? What do you notice next? Just notice that area of your chest again, and just notice what's happening there.
Yeah, that's feel. I'm getting the burps as well. That's really great to have on camera. Hey,
we can't hear it, and the good thing is, we can't get affected by your cough.
Thank goodness for that.
So that's fine, eh?
So yeah, it does feel like, yeah, there's definitely some movement happening.
Good. As long as there's movement, you just can keep tapping, and you can allow the movement to continue. And then when you stop on something, or when you notice something, that's when you use the intention statements again on wherever it's kind of stuck, or where it's not flowing, or where it's upsetting, or whatever it is.
I know one of the things that I have been tapping on is my illusion of control.
Ah.
And, you know, and I think that that's true for all of us. We think we're in control and we really aren't.
Well, this situation actually, of course, is challenging a lot of people in relationship to that. And by the way, there's no reason why, you know, when people criticize others who are, you know, hoarding or whatever, these are people trying to get back a sense of control. And I don't feel critical about them at all. And so I like, you know, if you have that, then you can release some of that. But it's natural for you to want to do some things, you know, to help you to feel some sense of control back. But meantime, yeah, all right. Here's the thing. You're naturally being triggered to want to get control, and now you're upset at yourself for that.
Yes.
Okay? So you have your problem, and now you got a second problem, which is you're upset at yourself for having the problem.
Yes.
Okay, so just release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
Trying to control.
To trying to control.
The sense of controlling.
The sense of controlling. Here we go again.
Yeah, beautiful big yawns. It's good. I see Kerry yawning along with you. Let's see, who do we see in another? Oh, I see Sue still yawning along with you. That's good. Okay, what are you noticing?
Just, yeah, sense of, I've got a massive, the heating's just turned on because it's cold here in Victoria. And I'm also feeling very hot.
Okay.
And
yeah, so just say,
release.
yeah, just say I restore the right temperature flow to my body.
I restore the right temperature flow to my body.
And just let it do whatever it does. Don't try and make it do anything. Just notice what happens.
Nothing really, I'm just hot.
That's okay. Is being hot a problem?
Well, that's an interesting thought because yes, I would say it is.
Okay. Well,
And clearly it isn't, is it?
Well, I don't know. Your mind will tell you that it is, and then it will become more of a problem because you're believing your mind, right? It's just a tendency that we have to believe our thoughts, and then we attach to them, and then suddenly something which isn't necessarily have to be a problem becomes a problem as well. And so just say, I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments
To being hot.
To being hot.
And that's a problem.
And that's a problem. I want to say, of course it's a problem, Steve.
Well, that's the next aspect. Okay. So that's okay. Whatever comes next is the next part of the problem. Okay. So of course being hot's a problem. Okay. So just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To of course being hot is a problem.
Of course being hot is a problem. Oh boy, we're going down some paths that are not to do with coronavirus now.
Exactly. Perfect. Because this is what happens with the intention tapping. The unconscious mind will reveal to you the underlying stuff, which of course it can't all just be coming from coronavirus. It's past stuff or other things that have been in your past, which now the stuff that's happening is the thoughts are attaching to that energy from those past things, that emotion from those past things. So just let it be whatever it is, and just let it, let it come forward.
If I was doing this, because I do this on my own, having like listened to a lot of your stuff, and I actually love intention tapping, is my next thought would be I release all emotional attachment to be a menopausal woman.
Well, there you go. Sure.
That's my next statement.
Yeah, and I actually thought that when the heat thing was there, but it didn't kind of occur to say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I release all emotional attachment to being a menopausal woman is a problem. Is that how I would word it?
Exactly. All right. This is what I like. When the more work you do, the less work I do. But that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You just keep going with it.
Yeah, that's actually that being my age is a problem.
Yes.
I release all shame. What is it? I release all emotional attachment to the shame I feel for being a menopausal woman, whilst however many other people are watching me.
Well, there's a lot more people on here that are, going through that or more right now, and yeah, sure. So it's a bit of both. It's the beliefs about it's the menopausal stuff which is associated with this, and it's the embarrassment and shame because of the BS about that, and then it's like, yeah, the mind's resistance to what is, which is like, I'm menopausal, I shouldn't be. I'm having these things, but I shouldn't be. You know, I'm talking about this on here, but I shouldn't be. You know, just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional
All
attachment
the things I shouldn't be doing.
to all the things I shouldn't be doing.
And thinking.
And thinking.
And feeling.
And feeling. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, if it's all right, we're just going to pause here and you just keep tapping, and then we'll just come back to the group and we'll see if we can do a little bit of tapping with one more person in the time that we have. I'm willing to go a few minutes over the time that we have. For anyone who is willing to stay around, we'll go at least 5 or 10 minutes longer than we originally scheduled. Just on people who sent me emails, next on the list is Taya. Now, can I find you, Taya? Are you here? Can you just jump forward if you are, because you are my next official volunteer, but I can't actually find you on my screen because there's too many people, which is good. It's a good problem to have in some ways. Can you type in the chat if you are here, Taya? Otherwise, if we don't hear from you within a few seconds, then we'll move to our next volunteer. Okay. And Sue's saying, thanks, Christine. Yeah, absolutely. Very helpful. All right, let's go to another one of my volunteers. Next volunteer is Zach. Now, I see you here, Zach, so it looks like you're up. Okay, nice to have a man come forward. You just speak, you should be able to.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All right, so you're looking at a different place to the way we're seeing you, but that's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think the camera is at the bottom of my monitor.
Yeah, no worries. That's all right. We'll just have to be mindful of that. Okay, so you're tapping, tapping. It says your network bandwidth is low, but we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's the challenges for you associated with the coronavirus and stress and anxiety and stuff?
One is that I've lost my job. So I don't know, I'm okay, I've got a bit put aside, but it's still concerned about financial well-being moving forward, and I guess that leads to uncertainty for me over the next period, because we're 2 weeks of lockdown and then we're 6 months of lockdown, and so it's probably that uncertainty around that side of things. And then lastly would be to do with my kids, but I think I've dealt with a fair bit of that myself, if anything. Yeah.
Okay, so you're freezing every now and then, but so far we can still hear you. So let's just start with what you said. Just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To losing my job.
To losing my job.
And everything that means.
That means.
And then just keep tapping and notice what comes up.
Feeling on this side of my ear, bit of upset.
Okay, and just say I restore the right energy flow and balance to my ear.
I restore the right energy balance and to my ear.
And then don't try and make it do anything. Just let it do whatever it does. Keep tapping. Just notice what happens. And just keep tapping and let us know what comes up.
My throat.
Okay, what's happening in your throat? I heard a bit of a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little hard to see because
bit of a hard to breathe, or a bit of a constriction, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, I said it's a little hard to know exactly what's going on because we're seeing you in slow motion and occasionally losing the image. But
Okay.
just say I restore the right energy flow to my throat.
I restore the right energy flow to my throat.
And my chest.
And my chest.
And my diaphragm.
And my diaphragm.
And my stomach.
And my stomach. And my shoulders.
Yeah, good. Yep. Each time you notice the next thing, just include it in. Yep. Oh, yeah. And then just keep tapping and notice what it does. Notice what happens.
I think that's okay.
Yep. Okay. So what's still there?
I've been doing a fair bit of yawning beforehand.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, you got kind of warmed up by two previous people to get into issues. And you know what? Even if the issues aren't your issue, just tapping along really helps, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the act of tapping because your thoughts go through your head anyway. So.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see if we can just find another one of your big triggers. You mentioned your kids, but you said you weren't sure about that.
Yeah, I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And my 3-year-old is probably the one. Yeah, now I'm starting to get upset. So my 3-year-old is a bit of quite anxious as a child, doesn't like being around other people. So my fear was that, you know, if we had to go to hospital, then she wouldn't cope with the with people being close. It would make her upset. So it was being upset about her being upset.
Of course. And actually it's being
Or
upset
the possibility of.
at a projection, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To the fantasy.
To the fantasy.
Of us having to go to hospital.
Of having to go to hospital.
And her having an anxiety meltdown.
And her having an anxiety meltdown. I think you're one of the only people that I smile and cry with at the same time.
Well, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? When you're moving through things and allowing things to move through you, you can have two opposite feelings at the same time moving through you. One's kind of moving up, and the other one's moving down and out. You know, so or through or whatever. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let it, as long as it's moving, let it keep moving, and then just notice what comes next.
Fear of death.
Fear of death, yeah, fair enough. Okay. Now, again, I just have to mute everyone because, and I'm going to have to unmute you or get you to unmute again because I just, unfortunately, sometimes when people join us, they come in unmuted. All right, so just say I release all my, and this is a big one for everyone. So if you're not tapping along, please start tapping now. Just say I release all my emotional attachments.
I release all my emotional attachments.
To death.
To death.
Now, of course, this is your own personal version of death because you've got your own personal death projections that you are entertaining yourself with, or your mind is entertaining you with, would be more proper, because it's not like you would want to entertain yourself with horrible thoughts like that.
No.
It's just what your mind does. And then, of course, we go into those thoughts as if they're happening, as if they're real, as if the mind knows everything, you know?
Mm.
Okay, so I saw it.
Or inside, I guess we've got to do something.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to entertain yourself, you know, you might as well show yourself a horror movie of your, you know, your horrible suffering death, you know? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a funny business because I was talking to some old people and one person actually said, you know, she said, I'd be happy to go with the coronavirus, you know, it'd be a much quicker death than a lot of the other ways that, you know, that you could go. And it really occurred to me that not everybody was thinking about it in the same way, you know?
Yeah. 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 Christine brought that to light for me just before. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now you're smiling. Is that a real smile or is it a, you know, is it coming up from within or is it, you know, just...
No, it's a genuine smile. I probably noticed that I have some tension across my shoulders and neck still, probably.
Restore the right energy balance and flow
Or restore the right energy balance and flow
to my neck and shoulders.
to my neck and shoulders.
And again, just keep tapping and let it do what it does. I noticed that Sue was yawning again along with you a minute ago, so this is good. You're helping each other.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Right. And just notice what's happening and then, you know, let me know what's happening that you're noticing.
It's still got a bit there, but it's definitely dropped a bit.
Yeah, okay. So there's still some there. Now, we don't know how much of it. See, there might be some of that because of the fact that you've also been holding yourself in certain postures and so on as well, which hasn't really been helpful, which you might do if you spend a lot of time in front of the computer and stuff like that, of course, as I do. And so, yeah, but it's surprising how much of the pain in those areas is also caused by suffering, where we tighten ourselves up and constrict, you know, around those constricting thoughts and feelings. So, where is it now? Where's the main focal point?
For me, it's probably the media. So I try to restrict myself just to reading government websites and things like that, but inevitably, you know, there's on social media or on your iPhone feed and all that sort of stuff. The media, I think, are using all the sensationalist words they probably can. And yeah, so too much of any exposure to what's going on, I think, is overwhelming, sense of overwhelming, and generates worry.
So just say I released all my emotional attachments.
I released all my emotional attachments
To everything I'm seeing.
To everything I'm seeing.
Everything I'm reading.
Everything I'm reading.
Everything that my mind projects about what I'm reading and seeing.
Everything that my mind projects about what I'm reading and seeing.
And all of the feelings that get triggered by what I'm reading and seeing.
All the feelings that get triggered by the things that I'm feeling and seeing.
Reading and seeing.
So is that the wrong way around? Reading and seeing and reading.
Feeling and reading. I think feeling and seeing, whatever.
Yeah. Feeling, seeing and reading.
Doesn't even matter. Just let it do whatever it does, because your unconscious mind knows what you mean. There's no need for precision in this approach. Okay, so it looked like a breath.
Yeah.
I always say, like I said to Sue, if you keep breathing, you might live.
That's the idea.
At least for now. All right, so we're going to
You
have.
won't hear from me if I don't.
What's that? Go ahead.
You won't hear from me if I'm not.
No, exactly. Now that's when you start to get real freedom, when you're able to joke at your previous prison-making, constricting thoughts, you know. And that's, you know, I know Morrison was talking in his speech today about the Aussie spirit. That's the true Aussie spirit, you know, really, is being able to joke at the authority, be able to joke at the enemy, being able to joke at the, you know, at the constriction, or, you know, whatever's trying to hold you back. And that's where we're ultimately heading. If we can release this stuff, we might actually get our sense of humor back and start being able to have a life while we're still alive. That's the aim. So we have to pause here though. So if you just keep tapping, and I'd love to hear back from you and also everybody that we've worked with today. So thank you so much to Zach and to Sue and to Christine for being my volunteers for today. And it looks like we're going to be defeated by the time, but I just want to finish off with and leave you with some stuff and leave you with some possibilities. First of all, a reminder for anyone who's still brand new to this process, intention-based energy process, also known as intention tapping. The core statements that you want to take away, and just try this, like Gary Craig said with EFT, just try it on everything. And if you do this while tapping and you keep on tapping and allow it to do whatever it does, give it time to work, you might be surprised what these statements can do and what the daily ongoing tapping process can do. Just whatever comes next, just notice that and then say, I release all my emotional attachments to this problem, this event, this image, this belief, this thought, this projection, this should not, you know, even this emotion that I should or shouldn't be feeling. And then when you notice where the feeling is and the disturbance in your energy flow, I restore the right energy flow to this area. I restore the right energy balance to this area. Or combine those statements, I restore the right energy balance and flow. Now, we're talking a lot about anxiety here, and anxiety can come from past negative stuff where we've learned to link a threat to stuff that's happening. Can also create it by projecting future scenarios of doom and gloom, and this is what most people are doing on a daily basis with the coronavirus. Your brain and your nervous system can't really tell a difference between something you vividly imagine and something you actually experience. So if you go into the thought, if you believe the thought, then you actually can feel some of those feelings as if it's actually happening, and it isn't really happening. So you want to release your emotional attachments to any projections and fantasies that you are having. I release all my emotional attachments to this projection that I will catch the virus, that I will suffer, that I will die, whatever it is. And especially use the word fantasy in the statement. I release all my emotional attachments to the fantasy that I will get sick and suffer and die, that this will happen, that will happen. Whatever your mind is projecting, just put that into the statement, make it the thing that you focus on, and use the intention, I release all my emotional attachments to this projection or this fantasy. And then keep on tapping and allow your feelings and thoughts to move and move through you, and allow whatever comes next to be the next thing that you focus on, and then use the process on that. Just some general tapping tips for anxiety, just general tapping. Tap for first aid whenever you're triggered. Tap on any things that you know are triggers. If you know that the media is a trigger, then do some tapping before you actually switch on the news. I'm not one of those people who says you shouldn't watch the news, but I don't think you should have to overwhelm yourself. And if you are overwhelmed, then sure, switch it off. But then do some tapping on, you know, what triggers you about it, and then see if you can switch it on and you're able to watch it with a little bit of more healthy distance, and tap while you're there. Graft the tapping to wherever your anxiety is happening. Graft the tapping. Do the tapping while you're watching the news. Do the tapping while you're reading the websites, while you're watching, you know, the videos, whatever it is that you're doing. And then tap on whatever you anticipate and whatever you project. and do the tapping every day. Tap every day so that you can tone and tune your energy system so that you can bring up your good life energy and reduce the amount of stress in your system on an ongoing basis. Now, I have done an Overcome Anxiety program. I recently put it out for half price. I've decided, because of the situation with the coronavirus, to actually make it pay what you choose. I've done this with a number of my programs in the past. I also did with this program right at the beginning when I put it out to my list. It was $2.99 full price, but I'm going to put it out there now, and you can just pay what you choose to pay to get the whole program, and you will get 8 hours of tapping if you do that. When I say pay what you choose, of course, it's not $1 or $0. We need at least $19 to cover our admin costs because we have to send this to you manually. So it's basically minimum of 19, but you never pay more than 99. If you follow that link and then you have a look at the program and you go down on that page, you can access it and you can insert the amount that you choose. If you put less than 19, we'll just refund your money. It costs me money to actually have someone do this for me and to send it out. But that's, if you want to just pay 19, that's fine. If you already have this program, then yeah, maybe it's a reminder for you to access it and start doing some of those anxiety modules, and because you still will have access to the recordings of that. So these are the recordings of a 4-part session that I did. I don't have time to do enough tapping with everybody today to really help everybody in the way that I would love to keep doing. So I figured this is the best way to put something out that's a good offer and that gives you a chance to really get into something. Just need to mute everyone again. So this is at EFTdownunder.com/ITA EFTdownunder.com/ITA. We have to do this manually. That's why it has to cost at least something. And then within 24 hours of when you do sign up for that, we will manually grant you access to that, and then you can get into the program and you can do those things. Obviously, I didn't just put this program out there to sell something. I am, of course, like the rest of you, in business, and I do sell things, and I don't feel bad about that fact. I hope you saw that I gave you, plenty of good value today, and I want to do some more of these things. And if I can actually combine that with some stuff that people can get inexpensively that really helps them, then that's what I'd like to do. I want to say a few other things before we sign off. I think that this situation is an opportunity for us to really ask questions about what's really important to us and what really matters. And if nothing else, this is causing people all over the world to question their values and to ask, what is really most important and what really does matter. And has, the way that we've been living been sustainable or good or whatever. And, for me, even just thinking about what really matters brings me back to my family and my darling wife and my kids. And, and I also have the situation that our eldest son is actually, he's moved out, and we're probably quite a period of time where we're going to be separate. But being physically distant doesn't mean we have to be emotionally distant. So for me, it's a key to keep in contact and keep our hearts open to each other in whatever ways we can. I want to leave you with this thought from Dave Lake: no fighting in the lifeboat. And we're all in this together. And the only way that we're going to get through this is by working together, by making allowances for each other, by accepting that everybody's doing the best that they can in a very difficult and trying situation. And that we therefore have to accept that sometimes people have been triggered into fear, and the fear is driving them. They're doing the best with what they've got. And the key that we can do is look after our stuff. Use the tapping and the intention tapping, particularly on your own stuff, so that you can get to the point where you are, then you're able to maybe help others. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found what we did helpful. You can find out more about intention tapping. I realize there's not that much stuff on our website. It's all on the blog. So if you go to eftdownunder.com/blog, then you're going to find a lot more stuff about intention tapping online. You can also go to YouTube and find my YouTube channel. It's Wells Down Under, or just search on Steve Wells Tapping or Intention Tapping Steve Wells, and you'll find our stuff. And there's lots of videos on there that you can follow along to learn more stuff about intention tapping. I'm also going to be, as I mentioned, sending out this. I'm going to be sending out the recording of this coaching program. I also hope to be able to do some more of these, like I said, you know, I'm playing around with different combinations and trying to work out what we can do with what we've got. So I certainly will be offering more opportunities for people to come along and do the tapping. I want to say thank you for joining me. I hope you found that what we've done has been helpful for you. I want to thank again the people who were the volunteers, yeah, we'll see you around, and let's keep tapping. Let's keep using the intention. Let's set our intention let me pass on one that I got from Deepak Chopra, actually, and it was very balanced. You know, sometimes I find that Deepak, I find him a bit ethereal, but the other day he put out something very practical, you know, talking about, you know, just the stuff about, you know, you're washing your hands and not touching your face and all that stuff. But it's also an intention, which is when the intention is, I'm not going to get it and I'm not going to pass it on. I'm not going to get it and I'm not going to pass it on. And, you know, I think if we go with that clear intention and move forward with that intention, and that's going to guide our actions, and we can, you know, we can have a real practical approach to working out how we're going to do that. And that includes, you know, training yourself not to touch your face as much, and washing your hands and all that real practical stuff, as well as maintaining the intention on what you want and where you want to go. All right, so our time is well and truly up. Thank you so much. Let me go to try unmuting you. It could be an absolute chaos to have people speaking up now and with all the distortion, but let's see what happens. So, all right.
Thank
Amazing. Bye. Thank you.
Very well.
So much.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Stay safe.
Bye,
Big love. Bye.
Hello, so I didn't know who was on that.
Okay, see you later. Okay. All right, we better go. Ciao.